So essentially, what I'm discussing briefly before we go into our daily dosage of me jumping out of my skin while playing a first-person horror game called Outlast. Today we're going to do the DLC. It's not terribly long. Whistleblower, which for those of you that were present when I played Outlast, it was a basically a corporate experiment gone wrong that had kind of been around since like the 1930s. But anyways, I'm going to begin briefly with a discussion of the movie Brightburn. So, I'm not sure if anybody has seen it yet. Brightburn was released in 2019. There have been a lot of adaptations of what one would call a supervillain, villain as a hero, um, and even going so far as to take the villain through the hero's journey as from inception to rise, fall, and redemption. And so this is an interesting take on the Superman origin story. Um, as you know, as everybody I'm sure is familiar, Superman came to Earth via a rocket ship that was sent from his planet, his dying planet. He lands in Middle America and is taken in by a loving couple that is unable to have children for whatever reason, and so they're seeking a child to take the place of their to basically become their child. Well, in this it leaves a little bit to the imagination as far as what their reasoning was behind it, but you get the idea. So basically, uh, you have this kid. He's somewhat awkward. He's not. He doesn't quite fit in. He's a little nerdy. And let me see if I can get a. There it is. There we go. All right. So, kid's a little nerdy, a little awkward. He is in school. He likes the cute girl. The cute girl's talking to him. It's your typical trope. Um, and in my opinion, I think that that plays in later as a mistake made by the directors. I understand the reasoning behind it, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But I feel that it was a mistake to run him as an awkward average teenager. So, anyways, one night, I believe it's his 10th or 11th birthday, he is bombarded with some sort of signal that's coming from his ship that's been hidden underneath the barn. Now, he's not been told by his parents that he's not human. He is unaware of his origins. He's unaware of any possible difference. And so you see him undergo some sort of convulsion in his sleep. Uh, you are led to believe that it's some sort of awakening. So, essentially what happens is the kid develops Superman-like powers. Where it comes from, it's not, it doesn't say, and it's really not important. So essentially the kid becomes invulnerable, and it is a almost complete 180 degree shift from his personality from the beginning of the movie for about the first third to when his powers awaken. The idea being power corrupts. Ultimate power corrupts. Well, he, I mean, he goes from like kind of normal awkward kid that gets kind of bullied to psychopathic murderer that manipulates and uses his powers to get his way and has basically no fear of anything. For all uh, all intents and purposes, he is invulnerable. Um, I'm not going to spoil, I'm not going to go into spoilers. I'm not going to go to the ending and tell you what happens. But essentially, he becomes a supervillain, and the idea here is that in so doing, he has become kind of the anti-Superman. So here's my issue with this movie. I thought it was a fantastic movie. First off, I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was done with care. I felt like it was done with a lot of good attention to detail, as well as a fair amount of respect for the source material. Meaning, the average Superman story. Elizabeth Banks, as always, is gorgeous and did a phenomenal job. She's a wonderful actress. I'm a big fan. Uh, I always enjoy watching her act. David Denman, who plays the father, was also he was awesome. Um, he's always interesting. He plays more of the standard male character in this. Uh, that I'm not sure how one could describe him, but I felt like David Denman playing the father played somewhat of a role of kind of like the ex jock football player. Um, that was the vibe I got off of him, and I think that was a mistake. Because the thing being here is this child, as it shows the child growing up, had an average childhood. There wasn't abuse. There weren't beatings. There was nothing in particular out of the ordinary that would have turned this child into a psychopathic killer. And my issue being is the fact that you've got an alien that came in from outer space. Okay, I get it. You've got he develops superpowers. He figures out that he's different and makes a total complete 180-degree shift from sane, awkward, normal to fucking scary. And the point being is that, Alien Lands has great powers. That doesn't mean he's going to be friendly. And and I don't know about everybody else, but I love myself some anti-hero stuff. It's always fun to twist the trope on its head. And as seen in this, he wears a strange mask and cape that he made himself out of cloth. I don't know why. It never really explains why. I mean, yeah, it's creepy, but it never really explains why. And that's the thing is they take him from alien, she's human to alien to completely and utterly inhuman, but he was so human beforehand, and he identified so closely with everything of humanity due to his upbringing. So the question is, was he brainwashed when his powers were awakened? Was his or was he always abnormal? I don't know. That's where this movie falls apart. This movie falls apart in the fact that the there is no logical connection between A and B. I mean, either he is an alien and is different and doesn't understand, or lacks some fundamental aspect, so that when he realizes that he is alien, it goes, aha, it all makes sense. Or he is brainwashed or has his mind altered when he receives whatever the hell information that he gets from the ship underneath the barn. And so that is a major plot hole. It leaves the film somewhat disjointed, uh, and it makes it a lot more difficult to see the characters one thing or the other. I think maybe the idea was to leave the audience divided. I don't agree with that decision. I think a more cohesive story would have had a greater impact. Did my Sorry about that. My headset decided to just stop working. So, anyways, as far as Brightburn goes on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it about a 7. I typically go off of the IMDb rating system as kind of a guide point. I've found that when reviewing horror movies, the closer you get to 10, the more likely it is you're watching a drama rather than a standard horror or supernatural horror or anything along those lines. This definitely falls under the superhero category. This definitely falls under supernatural, or I guess in this case, supranatural. And I would give it about a 7 on the scale of 1 to 10, according to the IMDb scale. In my experience in dealing with those numbers, anything 5 and above is watchable. Anything around 7 is a legit film, and I consider this a legit film, its failings notwithstanding. Uh, but before my mic died, I would like to state that if they had included the abuse to explain his actions following the transformation, though it would have made sense, I think it would have provided less impact to. Yes, yes, I do watch movies rated 0 to 1. I definitely own the worst movie ever made. It's called Axum. You haven't seen it yet, Jeebus. Don't worry, that will change. So I need to move my webcam down here for Outlast. So where was I? I totally lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah. So, anyways, in discussing this movie, I say go see it. It's definitely worth it if you like horror. If you like horror, if you like superheroes, especially if you like supervillains, this is one to go watch. It's definitely entertaining. That one disconnect in the nature of the hero, though fundamentally important, is less important as far as the overall narrative. The story itself, from beginning to end, makes sense. It's cohesive. It's just that the killer's transformation is not clearly stated and somewhat unintelligible on the whole. But overall, it's hyper violent. It's pretty gory, um, and it is somewhat disturbing seeing a 10, 11-year-old kid slaughter people, including family members. So if you're at all interested in that kind of movie, I highly recommend Brightburn. I think you should go see it, and it is I found it worth my time, and I think you'll find it worth yours.